the time to speak to me. I know we've exchanged a few messages before, and I really appreciate you giving up the time to speak to me on the series of podcasts that we're creating regarding sales engineering. If I tell you a little bit about myself, my name's James. I own the pre-sales market here at Trident Search. We're a specialist cybersecurity recruitment company, and all I deal with is sales engineers. So I either look to recruit sales engineers on behalf of startups, scale-ups, large enterprise vendors, or MSSPs, or those companies come to me and look for sales engineers, and my job is to try and find them and then place them. I don't come from a sales engineering or sales background. I've been with the company for about 8 months. Before that, I was a police officer for 15 years. So sales engineering, as we've spoken about previously, completely new to me. And I really didn't have an appreciation for what an important role it is, and for really the skills and that you need to be a really good sales engineer. If you wouldn't mind, just a little bit about you for anyone who might not have seen you or was just watching this series for the first time.
Sure. My name is Ramzi Marjaba. I've been a sales engineer for 8.5 years, if you want to count the halves. Before that, I was in network design and network support engineering. I've been doing that for a long time, so I've pretty much always worked with customers. And I founded We the Sales Engineers because I felt that there aren't enough resources for sales engineers, and I felt I need to get better because, in my humble opinion, I sucked. Which, I guess it's not. I don't need to preface that by being humble. But yeah, I was really bad, I thought, and I started the podcast in order to get better. And I've been running the podcast for almost 4 years, and now I coach aspiring sales engineers to become sales engineers, and also sales engineers who want to be great sales engineers. And I'm ready to be interrogated, officer. How many times have you heard that joke?
Yeah, a few times. Yeah.
I thought it was original until it came out of my mouth.
Well, I spoke to you. I'm sure you know Patrick Basang. I spoke to him recently. We talked a lot about introduction to sales engineering, how you get into it, what makes a good sales engineer, and controlling the deal. What we've spoken about, and you've touched on it as well, about the skills and qualities that you need as a sales engineer. And we talked about those that might be coming, who are coming from perhaps a sales background or a technical background, moving into sales engineering, and about the skills that they need. And we've spoken about it previously, about that self-doubt. And we touched previously with Patrick as well. And I know that you've gone on to explain that in your series and your podcasts as well, and about giving those people the tools that they need to be sales engineers or to really succeed in that environment. Would you like to sort of go into that? I think that's a really interesting and really important topic as well, and just how to overcome those doubts and those fears when in the role as a sales engineer.
In the role, or before, as they're trying to get into that role?
I think perhaps trying to get into the role, and then how it impacts and changes their perspective or changes their direction once they are sales engineers.
So I mean, when people are trying to get into that role, especially if they weren't sales engineers in the past, there's a lot of thinking like, oh, I don't have the human skills, I don't have the technical, I've never worked with a customer, I've never done a presentation. And a lot of times when I talk to people who have done that, who want to become sales engineers, they actually have done some work with customers. Maybe they're internal clients, like if they work at a bank and they're in IT, and somebody's computer crashed, they're the client. So we just have to, you have to look back at the impact that you've done. I think the biggest advice I give people when they're trying to apply for a job or any of that is, don't think about your job description when you want to talk to customers or when you want to talk to hiring employers. You want to think about the impact you've done to the companies that you've worked for. If you have done zero impact, you're probably not going to be a sales engineer or a good one. But if you've had an impact in the past, something that you're proud of, that will change the way you think about yourself as well. It's like, instead of going from, oh, I don't have that experience, to, oh, I helped to reduce the ticket processing by 20%, which led to this much increase in efficiency, which led to company being happy, whatever. So think about what you've done. Think about the accomplishments you've done, so that when you go talk to a hiring manager, you can highlight those accomplishments. I mean, some people haven't had any accomplishments at work, but they've come from poverty. They flew from a third world country into a first world country, struggled, didn't have money in their pocket. That's something that we need to highlight. What are our strengths? What do we do well in our lives beyond just work? And hopefully that will help people think about when they're talking to their hiring manager that they're a catch, not they don't lack skills. Skills can be learned with practice. So I'll pause here before I go on another 20-minute spiel. Did I answer at least part of your question?
Yeah, and you touched on some really interesting points, and I speak to a lot of people that are new to the SE world or are interested in it, and a lot of the feedback that I get and a lot of their concerns are, well, I've not got that customer facing ability. I've not been in traditional pre-sales role before. I've worked, in architecture, security architecture, network. I've worked with these products, but I've never really put myself in front of an audience. And I often come back and say, well, actually, you're just speaking to people. It's about having that ability to tell a story and having that confidence to do so. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you've encountered as well?
Yeah, I mean, again, so a lot of people think that they don't have the skills, but if you're working, technical skills are important. Like, you need to know the technology. It is something that you can learn. Generally speaking, you need to have industry skills, industry knowledge, product knowledge, and customer knowledge. So if you're working in cybersecurity as in IT at a bank, just as an example, you know the bank industry, and you know the customer. So maybe you're going from product A to product B. You also have some knowledge about the product, and as a customer, you know what you like to, how you like to be talked to, and how you like to be sold or guided to buy. And these are all advantages that you can use as an SE working trying to sell into customers. It's been a while since I was a customer, so things have changed. Their knowledge is different, so I need to adapt. That's a weakness that I have to overcome as an SE. You might not have that weakness because you are a customer. You work for someone who uses the products that you're trying to go and become an SE for. So that's an advantage that you have over other people. And if you haven't presented to anyone, start presenting. I mean, start your own Toastmasters, right? Figure something out. Like, if you're working at a company that actually a software, let's say like Palo Alto, if you're a software designer at Palo Alto, offer your services to help the sales team. Right? There are things that you can do today to get you exposed to the other side of the, I guess, sales cycle, from the buyer, moving from the buyer to the seller.
And does that make sense? It does, and that's essentially what you did, wasn't it, Ramsey? You mentioned earlier that you set up your podcast to not only to educate, but also to learn about, right, what skills do I need to better myself as an SE, as a sales engineer?
Yeah.
And we touched on that briefly as well. We talked about self-doubts, and there's certainly times in my career transitioning from the police to recruitment that I regularly think, oh, what am I doing? Have I made a mistake? I'm really doubting the processes. And I know that you mentioned that as well when we've spoken previously. Do you use any tools, or do you recommend any skills or rely on any techniques to overcome those doubts, perhaps when trying to liaising with a customer?
Practice. That's the only tool you generally need. Practice it in a safe environment.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going for an interview, practice answering the questions that you're probably going to get from the hiring managers. If you're going to meet a customer, practice the conversations. Things can go wrong. Yeah. But the more you practice, the more now you can practice for the things going wrong as well. Yeah. And I used to play basketball when I was younger. I didn't practice doing crossovers, so basically like switching hands, until I figured out how to be able to dribble with one hand. But if I didn't start doing that, I would never gotten to crossovers. I wouldn't know how to do in tough situations. And sales engineering is the sports of the business world. We're the athletes of the business world, so we need to practice to become SEs, or as we are SEs, so that when we go encounter a situation that we may have seen before, oh, I practiced for that.
Yeah.
I can answer the question, or I can handle the situation. Or if I'm going to meet a customer and something unexpected happens, because I've practiced enough, I'll have more strength to figure it out on the spot. So practice, I guess.
Yeah.
The short answer to your question is practice.
Yeah. Okay. And what is it that's when you have practice, when you've really prepared, say for example for an interview, that you're looking that you're trying to get into this wonderful world of SEs, and you stumble, is there something that you can train yourself to overcome those stumbling blocks?
So one advice I give people is to apply to jobs they don't really care about getting early on.
Okay.
So they can practice with those.
Yeah.
And then when they go to the job that they really want, they've already learned how to interview, because we interview once every year, once every 2 years, maybe, especially if we're happy at our job.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I recommend. But things happen. Like your computer could crash in the middle of an interview, like in the middle of a demo in front of a customer, or during an interview for a job. Ask for another time to come back. Like, there are things that are out of our control, and we can't do anything about. So what can we control? We can ask for continuous. Let's come back some other time. I'd be happy to do this demo. Have backups ready in case something catastrophic will happen. Right? If your first computer crashes, like, give me a second, I'll turn on the second computer and I'll be there in a second. Preparation always helps in terms of like dealing with catastrophe, but if it's just catastrophic, then we learn from it. Like, hey, I did this first demo, my laptop crashed, I didn't have a backup, and I lost a job. All right, next time I'll have a backup laptop, or maybe I'll reboot my computer before we start. So what are the lessons learned from each of the failures that I've got? And if we don't fail, we never learn. Someone smarter than me said that at some point. Yeah, absolutely. And something that when Patrick and I spoke last time, I know that we touched on as well, and you've mentioned about that ability to that storyteller, being able to tell a story when either an interview or when demoing a product. And Patrick touched on commerciality. So how commercial you are. So as in like a social media presence, or being known or being seen as an SE, reaching out to people in podcasts, or making yourself known in the industry. Obviously, that's something that you've done, and you've used that to great success, building your reputation, building your brand up, also your knowledge as well. Is there any advice you could give to anyone who's looking to get into the SE world or SE community, or looking to start interviewing for SE roles, to focus on in that respect? Well, so social media is kind of a long-term play. It's if you post something on social media today, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll get a job tomorrow. Yeah. But it's a good time to actually start posting. Maybe if you're okay with your current management knowing that you're looking for a change, let your intentions be known. There are other things that I would recommend before like jumping on social media, though, which would be connecting with as many sales engineers, salespeople. I actually created a video, published it last week, about the things that we need to do if we want to get a job, if we want to get an interview. Which is like apply to every single job, fix your resume so that it's not just a job description, it shows the impact. Connect with SEs, connect with salespeople, connect with recruiters, connect with as many people as you can on LinkedIn. Try to form deep connections. It's not just connect and call it a day. No, like try to add value to that person. Hey, like James, I connected with you on LinkedIn. I'm looking for an SE job, but I have a lot of friends that are in different industries. So if you're looking for SEs that I don't fit the requirements, I'll be happy to introduce you to them. And so you're adding value. You're not just taking. So connect with as many people as you can. There's sales engineers of New York that I love. I always like try to point people towards them. There's Pre-Sales Collective. There's a lot of places where people can connect with other SEs, other aspiring SEs as well. Like you can build a community like that. And then after that, attend meetups as much as you can, live in person. And then after that, you can start thinking about being a social or having a social presence. Right? So
you bring something up really interesting there about value and about adding value as a sales engineer. And we've talked about value to perhaps your CV if you're out looking for a role, value to yourself within an organization. But how important is that as a sales engineer, if you've got that job, you're an established credible sales engineer within an organization, how important is adding value when meeting clients, working with the sales team, demoing a product?
Well, in my opinion, it's the most important thing. Like, let's take an example of two cars, Honda and Toyota. They're exactly the same, pretty much. Some people love Honda, some people love Toyota. As a sales engineer, we don't want to get there, because at that point, if there's a Honda in this dealership and a Toyota in this dealership, we can just go start comparing prices and buy based on price. And the sales engineer's job is to not do that. The sales engineer's job is to show them like why Honda will be so much better for them in their lives.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's difficult because Honda, like we already know that, but when you're talking about technology, customers don't know everything there is to know about the product. So when we talk to the customers, we need to understand what is the process of sales engineering is the process of solving business problems through technology. So we need to understand what the business problems are, and we show value by showing them how we can solve their problem using our technology, and now we can do that better than our competitors without bashing the competitors.
Yeah.
So if I do that, if I talk to a customer and don't show the value, and another SE shows the value, they won the deal.
Yeah.
Not only did they win the deal, they won it for a higher price than what I could offer, what I could ask for.
Yeah.
So it's one of the most important aspects of our job.
And that's an incredibly fascinating point about adding value and your value as an SE. And would you agree that that's why a really homogenous, very inclusive relationship with your sales force, with the sales team, is important, and also the importance of discovery calls about research, working together?
So yeah, I mean, it's a partnership between sales engineers and sales people. If one of them decides to function in a silo, the whole deal will fall apart. We'll go back to selling on price, and it'll be a race to the bottom of who's going to provide the product for the cheapest price. And the point about discovery is everybody talks about sales engineering doing demos.
Yeah.
But what are you demoing really? Why are you demoing? Are you demoing the same thing for every customer? We don't need you. Just put a YouTube video up and you can go home, automated your job. The point of a demo is to show them how we can solve their problem. We can't tell what their problem is unless we do discovery. So the discovery is required to understand the customer problem, the customer needs. Like, hey, James, you have your own needs. Your boss has their own needs. Your subordinates have their own needs. How can I script the demo in such a way to touch on all three of those needs? So without discovery, there is no demo, or at least there is no useful demo. You can, again, put a video on YouTube, tell the customer, just watch that.
Yeah.
And so going back to the value thing, if you're applying for a job, you're the product. You're the product, and your employer is the customer. And there are more than one product they're looking at. So it's our job, as we're trying to get the job, to show our value and how much we can do for that company.
Yeah.
Whether we're new SEs or aspiring SEs, wherever we are on the spectrum, if we don't show our value, we generally don't get the job either.
Yeah. And that's a fantastic point. And I've spoken about it before, and when I spoke to Patrick previously, he talked a lot about controlling the deal, about what tools that he would use, what tools that are suggested to control the sales team, the sales life cycle. And touching on that, if you're working in a team or working with a sales team that haven't got that relationship, that aren't willing to give you the time for a discovery call, or to learn about the company, or to learn about the pain points of the client or customer, have there been any tools that you teach or that you can share with people about how to get some control of that?
So when you say tools, are we talking about like a computer software or a book, or is it just communication, for example?
Yeah, communication and interpersonal tools.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sales job, right? Now the SE is trying to sell the salesperson why a discovery is better. So I've run into multiple SEs who've had the situation where the salesperson just schedules demos for them. And it depends on the personality of the salesperson and the SE. One person, I just told him, like, hey, ask the salesperson, are we in the business of doing demos or closing deals?
Yeah.
Because they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
So if you want me to do demos, I can do demos all day. You're not going to get commission on that.
Yeah.
But if you want me to help you close deals, get me involved earlier in the sales cycle. That was one methodology. Another one was like, hey, salesperson scheduled an hour-and-a-half meeting for an SE. And the SE was freaking out. Like, what am I going to do for an hour and a half? I don't even know what the product, what the problem is and all that. So what we decided was, like, open a line of communication with your account manager. And it always ends up being a communication problem, because salesperson does something, SE thinks that they're doing something else. But in fact, like, the whole point of the conversation was, hey, go back and talk to that salesperson, see why there's an hour and a half. It's like the salesperson said, oh, like, I just scheduled an hour and a half. It doesn't have to be. Right. And now the stress level went down for the SE, because now he doesn't have to fill an hour and a half. And then the conversation was like, you want me to demo something? I don't know what the problem is. I'm going to spend the first 5-10 minutes asking questions. Is that okay? You do you. It's as easy as that, having a conversation. And sometimes we argue with ourselves. We start having arguments with both sides of our brains. One is us, and us the victim, and one is the salesperson, the aggressor. But in fact, like, that's not the conversation. That's not how it's going to take place. So open a line of communication. Whoever you have a problem with in life, in general, just talk to them, right? Yeah. Hey, you're not inviting me to discovery calls. I can do a much better job for you if you invite me to discovery calls, because then I can customize the demo in such a way that it will knock the socks off the people watching the demo. Would you like that? Is that something you're interested in?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. How about we try it? Because it's always easier to say, let me try it once or twice before we make a decision and commit to this being the process.
Yeah.
These are the tools that I use.
I think they're really, really valuable tools. And it's about having that confidence to do that, isn't it? About having the trust and faith in your own abilities to be able to stand your ground and put your points across.
Well, even as new SEs, what you can do is not communicate with the account manager. Just go to the meeting and start with a 5-minute discovery, right? Start with a 5-minute discovery and then do the demo. After the call, tell them, like, hey, this didn't go so well, did it? Like, if I had known that information that I just got in the first 5 minutes at a time, I would have done a much better demo for you. Can we try it next time? Just get me involved a little bit more earlier. Let's see. We'll try it. So we always have to spin it in such a way that what's in it for the other person.
Yes.
Even if, like, I'm talking to my wife and I want her to go for a hike, for example. What's in it for her? Well, we gotta go have fun and smell some fresh air. All right. And then you have to in order to do that, you have to know what's important for them. And generally speaking, salespeople, what's important for them is closing the deal, making their quota to feed their family.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Really interesting point. No, thank you. And if you come up with so much there as well, I really appreciate it, Ramsey. And it's very kind of you to give up your time to talk to me about sales engineering and some of the skills required to be a really good sales engineer, about how people can get into it and what skills they should focus on when they are learning how to become a sales engineer. What about you? If you weren't doing this, if you weren't involved in the podcast, if you weren't an SC, what would you be doing?
Well, what I'm looking to do is coach more people.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I would be doing if it wasn't for I started the podcast because I was bad at it as an SE. Before that, I was a network design engineer, and I wanted to leave that job. So in an ideal world, I'd probably be an athlete somewhere, making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
That's what I would have liked to do.
What would you be? What would you be performing in?
I would be sucking at basketball too.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I were to dream, that would have been the dream. But as a young kid, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
As an older person, I'm not sad about not doing that, because that life that just seems so foreign, and I don't know. I'd rather be an SE.
Yeah.
But the goal in the next few years is to be a full-time coach for my SEs, like the people that I'm helping today, and growing that, because I can sell. You probably see that.
Yeah.
I can sell any product to any customer. The individual using the product, their lives didn't change. I can help. You can help one SE get a job. You just change someone's life.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For selfish reasons, I like that more. Like, it makes me feel better about what I do.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. Yeah, it's nice to try and help people.
Yeah, and I enjoy. I enjoy sales engineering. I really do. There's a mental aspect to it. There's a strategy to it. Like trying to talk to people and who don't want to talk to you, and then make them friends.
Yeah,
that's a great feeling as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm torn.